Caviar, one of the world's most elite foods. Costing thousands of dollars per pound, it's a delicacy for the ultra-rich. In Canada's first ever undercover investigation into the world of fish farming, Animal Justice is exposing the horrifying secrets of the caviar industry. Caviar has been criticized and even banned in some places for its extreme impact on wild sturgeon populations. But until now, the world hasn't seen inside a caviar farm without the filter of decadent marketing. What our whistleblower found inside this British Columbia caviar farm surprised us.
Here we have the sucking of the eggs out from the hole after the hole is punctured into the fish's belly, I think.
Like, you'll see the water in here. It's not.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were in here the other day and it was like, it's ground.
We just are not talking about the fish so much. As my understanding is that there just really aren't very many protections.
Practice is so new that we just don't have good guidance.
Based on our work, caviar farms are much less transparent than what we've seen in other places. No one really knows what's going on.
Not only is caviar an unnecessary indulgence that most people don't eat, it's exceptionally cruel to animals, similar to other status symbol foods that cause immense suffering. Watch as we show that caviar, like other luxury animal products, is just too cruel to be sold. This is Gracie. Gracie is a 30-something-year-old, 7-foot-long sturgeon who's been living in a tank like this since at least 1999. She lives at Northern Divine Aqua Farms, a white sturgeon and coho salmon caviar farm on BC's Sunshine Coast. One worker claimed Gracie's parents were born in the Fraser River, and she was born in captivity. She spends her days swimming in circles in her filthy tank.
People talked about her like she was special, and I heard that she would come and swim up to workers and was just very curious about people.
That doesn't surprise me at all, because fishes do show the ability to recognize and remember individual identity, not just of their own kind, but of other species, in this case humans.
Gracie might remind you of another intelligent aquatic animal who recently died after life in a tiny tank.
Kiska, the orca, died on Thursday at the age of 47 at Marineland in Niagara Falls.
Gracie and Kiska have a lot in common. Sturgeons and orcas can both be found in oceanic and freshwater and share many of the same waters around the world. Both species are exceptionally large, can live up to 100 years old, and are critically threatened or endangered. Sturgeons are the most endangered species group in the world.
So it's important to remember that there's, I think it's like 27 or between 20 and 30 different species of sturgeon. One thing that they all have in common is that they're all threatened.
They've been used by human beings primarily for caviar, although they were also hunted for meat. But they were overfished and the populations crashed.
Kiska drew international outrage as the public watched her slowly suffer to death in a cramped tank. Gracie's suffering, like so many other fishes just like her, has happened in secret. In an indoor tank less than a 40th of the size of Kiska's already pathetic tank.
It seems that actually the enclosure that they have might even be smaller than their minimum, that standard that is recommended, or at least endorsed by the FAO.
It's a small, minuscule fraction of what she would have normally encountered.
If you take an animal like a sturgeon who lives for decades and probably covers a lot of area in their long lives, and you put them into a relatively small tank, you can expect that the animal is going to be deprived.
Gracie is what they call a broodstock fish. Instead of her eggs being sold for caviar, they are regularly cut out of her and used to grow other sturgeons.
There are about 38 of these broodstock fishes, ranging from 15 years of age into their 30s. Their long lives spent trapped in these dirty, overcrowded tanks.
Autonomy and freedom and choice making is taken away in captive settings. Aquaculture operations, which are essentially factory farming, only in this case in an aquatic setting, one of the worst hardships on their captives is that the captives don't have autonomy, they don't have control over their lives.
Sturgeons used for caviar have to grow to at least 11 years old before they can produce sellable eggs.
Some people talked about how sometimes the sturgeons would jump out of their tanks and be left on the floor for hours. Where do you find them?
On the ground. No.
For 2 hours and they would be fine. Oh.
This fish had a mouth deformity and was stuck swimming upside down, which can indicate a swim bladder issue. This fish appeared to be missing pectoral fins. To keep track of the sturgeons, the farm injects a microchip near the back of their head with a thick needle. The sturgeons appear to writhe in pain as it's injected.
You can clearly see that that fish is, in distress. And if the fish was a land animal, we would hear the fish as well. As David Casuto has an article, he talks, you don't need lungs to suffer, but it's, unfortunately you do need lungs to scream.
To check whether the eggs for caviar are ready, workers are tasked with one of the most unsettling procedures we've ever witnessed on farms.
Poke a hole in them. Okay.
In our footage of this never-before-seen practice, workers are trained to wrestle the fish onto a stretcher where she is stabbed in her abdomen. The worker then inserts a clear vinyl tube into her wound and uses their own mouth to suck eggs out of the fish. This can be deeply uncomfortable for the worker and agonizing for the fish.
Every once in a while it goes horribly wrong. You hit the swim bladder or something. The swim bladder is ever so slightly pressurized. It'll blast the fish air into your mouth. Swim bladder.
It's comparable to our lung. It's a vital organ. Do the math of, puncturing vital organs.
No painkillers appear to be used during the procedure. If her eggs aren't yet ready, the fish is put back into the pool.
Many sturgeons have to endure this painful procedure over and over again.
When her eggs are matured, the sturgeon will be slaughtered, but not before she's starved leading up to her death.
Feed them now, you go to a point where you don't feed them.
Yeah.
And the clean water makes their meat taste better and the eggs ready, and then you harvest them.
So they're staged prior to being
Exactly.
harvested. How long did they get staged for before harvest? Okay.
Sturgeons are killed with a captive bolt gun, the same tool used to kill pigs, cows, and other larger animals on farms.
Cock it, so now it's actually loaded. We'll line it up right over the skull, and it's gonna go bang.
Sturgeon caviar means a long life of suffering just to be used as an opulent garnish. Like many other luxury foods, the cruelty is staggering. Northern Divine Aqua Farms also raises coho salmons for their eggs, which are also referred to as roe or ikara, and are often used in sushi. These salmons endure their own forms of suffering.
Salmons are predatory fish. Fascinating aspect of their lifestyle is that they're born in freshwater rivers upstream, and then at a certain age they migrate to the ocean and they spend several years in the ocean. And then they have this incredible capacity to home back in on their natal streams. If you think about aquaculture, where you have animals who are confined for years, they can't, for instance, in the case of salmons, they cannot migrate long distances. They cannot choose mates. They cannot choose what they eat, when they eat, and how much, and what sort of food it is.
Because the farm has no use for male salmons, every fertilized egg on the farm starts out female. When they need males for breeding, they bathe a selection of fertilized female eggs in testosterone to make some. Because these fishes aren't being sold for meat, they are all injected with the antibiotic erythromycin. Northern Divine's caviar and sturgeon meat is certified organic, despite the intense use of hormones and antibiotics elsewhere on the farm.
Shockingly, they're also endorsed by Oceanwise.
care about it being organic, they care about it being ocean-wise.
And claim to be recognized best choice by Sea Choice and Seafood Watch, though Sea Choice denies they endorse the brand. When it's time to kill a salmon for her eggs, she's scooped out of the tank and thrown onto ice.
Get put into ice water, does that kind of stun them?
Yeah, we just let them sit in there, and then once they go into the plant, we'll bulk and bleed them.
Right.
Even under the aquaculture industry's own weak guidelines, an ice slurry is not considered a humane method for killing a salmon. She may suffer on ice for over an hour before being brought to the killing room, where many were found to be already dead, frozen solid.
So that's basically using that as the method of killing, which you're not supposed to do because it takes too long, and it's a problem.
No, that's not a recognized method of slaughter.
The primary method for killing salmons at this farm is to beat them over the head with a metal club.
Kind of between, I'm shooting for between like the gill and the eyeball.
Oh yeah.
Like, and even into the bridge and the nose. Any further back here and you risk bruising the ovary, like getting into it.
Yeah.
Which affects.
Then they're cut open and thrown into another ice slurry. Many fishes appear to remain conscious after being struck and are sliced open while still alive. This fish appears to be alive, thrashing around in the ice.
Sometimes you do get body movements after consciousness is lost, but that one looks kind of coordinated and concerns me.
It didn't look like twitching. It looked more like the general flopping and trying to get away from a harmful stimulus that you see in a conscious fish.
One thing I would say about being on ice, there are studies that expressing concern about the use of ice baths because a fish who's still conscious remains conscious much longer. It could be minutes without being on ice, and it can be over an hour or two on ice. So if the animal is in pain or suffering, that's a bad situation.
So much of fishing is moving to farmed fish now. So, I mean, really, if you're going to buy any kind of fish, you probably just assume it's going to be farmed. If that's the case, then people need to know about these practices, and I think learning about them would make them think twice.
From the majestic sturgeons to salmon, a keystone species, these animals should have protections. Farmed land animals already have almost no protections in Canada, but fishes have it even worse.
And we're often not even registering them as individuals. We're just measuring them by ton, by weight, and we're not really thinking about their welfare. Generally speaking, we're talking about a very unregulated, unprotected environment for them.
Just generally, if you have humans raising animals to have them slaughtered and to make money, profit, it doesn't usually work out in the animal's favor. We've seen that time and time and time again. And we're not talking about millions or even billions of animals, or even tens of billions, hundreds of billions in the case of fishes, possibly over 1 trillion a year.
It's estimated that over 458 million fishes are killed annually in Canadian fish farms alone, and a further 10 billion aquatic animals are killed in Canadian fisheries every year. This doesn't even include non-target bycatch. And caviar farms are a particularly indulgent form of cruelty. Thinking, feeling individuals spending their lives in cramped, filthy tanks, cut open over and over, and killed without compassion, just to provide a fancy garnish.
It would be good to get to a stage of things where, the high social status of the food is not correlated to the high level of cruelty.
Join us in calling for better protections for fishes, starting with a ban on the sale and production of caviar in Canada. Visit animaljustice.ca/caviar. And as always, the best way to help animals is to keep them off your plate.